Hello and welcome to another episode of the Father and Son Pastime Podcast. I'm Patrick.
I'm Kevin.
That's my dad.
How are you?
Dad, we are going to continue with our stories, baseball lore through the ages. Today's focus is the House of David baseball team. Dad, do you have any idea when in history we're going to today?
I really don't, but I'm fascinated by the topic.
I'm glad. It's very fascinating. It gets a little culty. So if you like cults, you might be hearing this podcast. If you like baseball, you might be hearing this podcast. But we're really going to talk about the 1910s to the 1950s. This team / cult was really active in the 20s and 30s, but they did have almost like a 40-year story arc stretch there for a while. And now, specifically, it is a Jewish baseball team, all Jewish baseball team during this time. And they could most likely be compared to the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball. They were performers, barnstormers, and obviously athletes too. Globetrotters and the House of David baseball team are very serious athletes. Yeah. We'll get into some of their kind of what they did on a daily basis. But yeah, that's when we're talking. Do you know where this is happening? I said we are doing barnstorming, so all over the country. But they did have a home base. They had a home field.
Somewhere on the East Coast, I'm thinking Philadelphia.
I could hear that argument, people coming in, immigrants and that kind of stuff. We're going to Michigan. We're going into the shores of Lake Michigan, about an hour boat ride from Chicago, so that side of Michigan.
So Muskegon, that area?
Mm-hmm.
I never knew this.
That southern, south or southwestern.
Battle Creek, that area?
Yep, but on the water.
I know it well, by the way.
There you go. We have someone that used to live in Michigan, in Lansing, so not in this area.
Yeah.
I can understand why, when you live there in the 60s, this wasn't talked about much. And we'll get into, obviously, the fall of the House of David baseball team shortly. We're going to obviously talk about the rise, first off. Any good story, any good cult has a good rise and fall. And we're going to learn that today.
Wow.
So, Dad, when we think about baseball teams, getting together, why did they feel the need to do this? Why did a couple Jewish athletes say, hey, let's travel the country and play baseball?
They weren't welcome in the mainstream baseball leagues?
There's a little bit of that. We'll talk about who they played a lot. They actually played a lot of Negro League teams. And we'll get into that later. Yeah. We talked about Negro League history on a previous episode. But just like, what does every sport make?
Money.
Right. It's all about revenue. That's a huge part of it. Revenue for what they would call the commune, what I will be calling a cult. And I'll leave you, the viewer at home, to make your decision if it was a collective commune or a religious athletic cult, but also to spread about the faith. They were advertising, the Jewish faith across the country. They knew that baseball was really popular, getting really popular. This is, again, Babe Ruth is playing at the same time, the 27 Yankees. Baseball is on the rise in this country, and they were trying to get involved in that movement and also capitalize on both capital as well as the advertising piece of, hey, Jews play baseball too, and we're quite good at it. Come to Michigan and see our commune.
But when I was in Michigan, not a whole lot of Jewish, communities. A little bit in Detroit, but to my knowledge, Michigan does not have a strong Jewish base. Interesting.
I was shocked to learn that it was in Michigan as well.
Yeah.
I think guessing a main, eastern seaport would have been smart. Yeah. This had a ton of land, a ton of acres in, like I said, southwest Michigan. Beautiful backdrop. We'll get into, again, Jewish baseball players being attracted to this area.
Great weather during the summer. Great weather. So I think that could be some of it.
Yeah, and again, they barnstormed. We'll get into how many games they played, but they played more games than professional baseball teams because they barnstormed so many times and had multiple games a day too. But with any good, I guess we'll go say with cult here, they have strict rules. You had to follow these rules to be in the cult. To be on the team and to obviously live on the land and travel with the team. Now, some of these, you could we'll go with me here, Dad. There was no drinking, there was no smoking, and there was no drugs of any kind. You had to play baseball pretty much all day. This got you out of, again, this was a big farm in Michigan as well, and we'll talk about all the land they had. They had multiple baseball fields. If you weren't farming, you were playing baseball. So far, Dad, I'm not out on this call. It's okay so far. Like, you got baseball. I don't have to do the work if I just play baseball all day. I'm not a big drinker. I'm not into smoking or drugs. I'm listening to their pitch. Okay, I'm not Jewish, but I'm listening to their pitch. The next rule, no sex. I'm out. So I'm out after that. You can't shave or get a haircut. Part of the Jewish faith, or at least their interpretation of the Jewish faith, was to never cut or trim your hair.
Right, that's part of a band within the Jewish faith. I forgot what they call them, but yeah, it's part of that. Yes.
So I'm showing my dad pictures of some of these players right now, and you can kind of see that, I mean, these players didn't just have like long hair, like think 70s. No. These players had hair down to their butts. And again, we'll feel free to Google this on your own, but just some of these players, I mean, had braided hair. I mean, extremely long hair. So if you ever want to see, some of these photos are incredible, and sorry we can't share them on this podcast, but feel free to search them on your own, and you'll go down the deep dive just like I did.
It was a cult.
Yeah, so you couldn't shave, and then really their focus was only baseball and God. So would you be in this cult, Dad? Would you join this cult?
No.
No.
But did they go with the Jewish faith and Saturdays they didn't play baseball? Or
No, they played baseball. As far as my research could tell, they played baseball nearly year-round, almost March through October, even
every day
November.
of the week.
Every day of the week. I couldn't find anything that they took the Sabbath off. Maybe some years they did. Remember, this is, again, I was looking at 30, 35 years of team travel. And this will kind of get to the origin of the cult as well. They were using this to make money. Their peak seasons, they had multiple teams, and they played usually more than 200 games a year. Wow. So insane to their bodies. I mean, these were talented athletes, but obviously their focus more was obviously on Judaism versus maybe being in Major League Baseball, for example.
And very, very interesting so far.
Yeah.
What was the attendance like? Was it a couple hundred?
So it was hard to say because you would travel from city to city, and maybe your city has a baseball stadium that held 2,000 people. Maybe it had 200 people. As the cult grew in popularity, or the baseball team grew in popularity, their attendance did. They knew that going to a lot of predominantly black cities or black parts of cities, and playing, for example, they played the Monarchs plenty of times, plenty of years. They would always sell out those games.
That's really interesting.
So one of their biggest opponents were Negro League teams or Negro League affiliated teams. Also, maybe they were barnstorming too. This was just,
I know.
And it goes back to the time when I was saying, like, I think it was during your podcast, that the 30s baseball is just fun. Like, any city you go to, from a little town that had one factory, probably had a baseball team. There was Sunday League baseball for churches. There's the House of David. There's Negro Leagues. There's the rise of Major Leagues. There's the rise of minor league baseball.
Yeah, look at Eastern Shore. Yeah. They had all kinds of teams Eastern Shore.
If you had people, you had baseball. And that's, I would love to have been a part of playing baseball.
And think about, a bunch of Jewish guys, playing the Negro Leagues and all that stuff. They were just having fun. Yeah. They were playing baseball. There's no bias or, prejudice or anything else. They're just playing baseball. That's great. And it's the 30s.
Yeah. We will get into this, but we're on the subject anyways. They were really the first teams that did integration. How a lot of just barnstorming used to work is, hey, you're a baseball team, I'm a baseball team. How about my pitcher throws against my team and your pitcher throws against your team? Mm-hmm. So it's not like, we know we're better, let's go whip on you. Like, we wanted a game. We wanted 10-8, 6-5.
Entertaining.
Right. So if, again, playing the Kansas City Monarchs, the black pitcher of the Monarchs would pitch against, his team, but white Jewish men were in the field. Mm-hmm. So that's
and now Satchel Paige.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get into Paige. Paige actually has a role in this team. We'll get into that soon. But in terms of integration, I mean, a black guy's on the mound, a white guy's on first, a white guy's catching. I mean, the broken color barrier is very specific to Jackie Robinson and Major League Baseball, but there were interracial teams really since the origin of baseball, even in the 1870s.
Yeah, too bad Judge Landis didn't see this.
Right, Kennesaw Landis. I remember that name. It's it will always be in there. Yeah. Look it up on the old podcast. We're having fun with this. I'm only on page 1 of my notes.
And but it's fascinating.
It's very fascinating.
Yeah, I had no idea.
To hook you some more, so like I said, they were the Harlem Globetrotters, or what we think of the Harlem Globetrotters. These were here first of baseball. So they obviously were athletes. They were players, but they really were performers as well. They wanted to put on a good show. A 1-0 game didn't really interest them, so they found different ways to entertain people. The biggest thing that they're known for, Dad, is perfecting pepper. I always know people like the popping peas of Patrick from the Pastime podcast. So they perfected pepper, and that was what they would do either before the game or after the game. And if you've ever seen pepper, I'm sure you guys know what that is. But throwing a ball, someone hitting it or bunting it to somebody and immediately throwing it and hitting it back, and it's just kind of this immediate thing. You bun it into the ground, you chop it in the ground, whatever it might be, and it's a quick kind of reaction game. This is the 20s and 30s. Entertainment's not that high. Talking film is just starting here, people. Mm-hmm. So keeping that in mind, that hey, this traveling band of really strange-looking men that perform a borderline circus are coming to your town, I'm going to go watch. It's a nickel.
I was going to say, it couldn't have been much of a mission charge.
Right. I wanted to get, obviously, up to the big thing. But one game, I don't know if it was just a spectacle or they were starting to lose revenue. They said, let's play a whole game on donkeys. So they played a whole baseball game riding donkeys to first base, to field ground balls, to field flyouts.
So they hopped a donkey, and then what?
No. They were on the donkey. And I'm not kidding about this. There's
the
photos of this.
They're on a donkey as the pitch is coming in.
And yeah, the batter's on a donkey, the catcher's on a donkey, everybody's on a donkey.
Huh.
Yeah, it didn't really work well.
Donkey ball.
Pretty much. But again, think about that. Again.
Well, you had to be a real jackass to play that game.
Put yourself in those shoes, though. 1920s. Prohibition's going on. That's a big kind of part of this, is that you think you're so funny. Give a like for my dad, everybody. So in the 20s, we were talking about how the country is in Prohibition, so there's no alcohol. Some people really like that. A lot of the people of House of David were like, wow, I think we're about that. The rest of the country is really going to illegal moonshine, and mafia's, getting large, organized crime. Alcohol was actually never more rampant in America than during Prohibition. So a lot of these people were like, I wanted the strict rules. I wanted the safeness of a commune on the shores of Lake Michigan, because the rest of the world is going to shit right now. I need to feel a little safe, and people usually do find religion when the world doesn't make a lot of sense.
And that area is still huge with farms.
Yeah.
Used to be a big dairy farm land, by the way.
So we got the donkey battle. We got the pepper. They were known to have the first night games. They seem to have on their home field in Lake Michigan. They had electrical lights. They had light bulbs putting on the field. Because like I said, this was like sun up to sundown. And once they had lights, they realized, hey, we could play in the night if we had lights. So they did. And then they would put on a lot of stuff, other things. We'll talk about how the commune grown shortly.
I think Major Leagues didn't have lights then.
Correct. They were the first organized team to have night games.
Wow.
House of David baseball team.
That's pretty That's fascinating.
They had a lot of money, and you'll see. Obviously, there's a rise, so I allude to there's a fall. A few other things. Obviously, they were performers. They juggled bats. They juggled balls. That's kind of simple. But again, Harlem Globetrotters. Have you ever seen them play? They seem to almost bring out like a mystery ball sometimes. One comes out of nowhere. Their beards, they would keep. Can I see that ball for a second, Dad? They would keep baseballs in their thick beards, and I'm not kidding about this. And then when the ball would go too far or slightly go out of play or whatever, they would, I got it. And that would really entertain the crowds that they had 3, 4, even 5 balls in some of their beards at some points. That's how thick their hair was.
Like the vines at Wrigley.
Yeah, pretty much like the vines at Wrigley.
Wow, this is great.
So they, again, when we talk about these kind of rare things about baseball history, I don't always need to talk about Babe Ruth, although I'm going to talk about Babe Ruth soon. It's just really interesting. You've got to put yourself in the time period. You're probably bored. If you're a 16, 17-year-old kid...
Yeah. You're working the
college
farm.
Wasn't a thing for like 16, 17-year-olds.
Yeah.
You're either going to the farm,
Yeah.
you kind of know your future. Oh my God, the circus is coming to town. It's the same reaction to the House of David baseball team.
Yeah, there's no entertainment.
Right.
Yeah, there's no entertainment.
Right.
Outside the radio.
Right.
Right.
So they keep making money. Obviously, you can see easily the attraction. You're going to go at this point if you're listening to this podcast. We're going to go at this point. They've brought enough money back to Michigan from barnstorming for basically about a decade and a half, 10s into the 20s at this point. The owner of the commune, the farm, the cult, says, let's make our home field more than just a baseball field. Let's make multiple fields, and let's just bring it a whole tourist attraction. It's the shores of Lake Michigan. It's the summer. Let's have some fun with it. So they had all this land. So, Dad, have you ever played Two Truths and a Lie?
No.
Okay, so basically it's where I tell you 3 things. 2 are facts, 1's a lie. And your job is to say which do they not do.
Got it.
So on this land, by the end of the 20s, they had a zoo, a casino, and an amusement park, which is not true.
Casino.
Correct, because they're men of faith and they don't believe in vices, so no casino would be there. But they had a zoo.
Yeah.
I'll try to find photos of this place too. Dad.
Yeah, and if you think about it, they had probably enough connections and everything else to do that, and it probably wasn't exotic, but they brought in what they could for the animals and everything else, and people love that. Zoos are still popular today.
Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to bring up some photos from my dad. But this was a place you could visit, I think, up until like the late 70s. It's in, hold on, let me show you this one, Dad. It's in Benton Harbor, if you're familiar with that place in Michigan.
Yeah, that's not that far. That's down in the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, super southwest. Here's the entrance.
Wow.
Where'd this go?
They got a lot of Chicagoans going there.
This is, why did that go away? So they had just a huge amusement park. They had like this mini train that kids could ride into the theme park. So these are all photos from the park on its heyday. They had performance stages. Obviously, they had plenty of baseball fields. They would have discount nights. They would do certain things to attract kids from the community to work. Getting transportation, either trains or buses from Chicago. They knew what they were doing. They were an organized baseball team.
Do you want to hear a story?
Sure. Have you been to Benton Harbor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Amusement Park.
Benton Harbor Amusement Park?
Yes.
Yeah. It was
eighth grade, St. Gerard.
It was a thing through the
John
60s.
Smoltz.
I think, yeah.
We were safeties. Our reward at the end of the year was going to Amusement Park in Benton Harbor, and that's what we did, 8th grade. So that was 1970.
Okay.
And that's where we went. We spent the day and came back to Lansing. I've been to that amusement park. Oh, my God.
Yeah. So they go. I think I thought it closed in the late 60s. It could have been early 70s, so you probably saw the tail end of it.
Yeah, it wasn't much.
Do you remember the little train that took you in?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Oh, my God.
We're going to talk offline about that because I want to know more.
Oh, my God.
But I saw your face. I was like, what did I say? It's around Halloween for us filming. Don't know when we'll see this.
Oh, my God.
So you've been here.
Yeah.
So right behind the amusement park is all the baseball fields.
Yeah.
So did you remember people of the Jewish faith there? Because it still was always a Jewish amusement park.
It was in May that we'd had the reward, trip and all that stuff. I think we're the only ones in the park. Probably maybe 4 hours there, and just did simple rides and food and all that kind of stuff. But I remember. So
as soon as you saw these photos, you went, I recognize that. Yeah.
When I heard Benton Harbor and then you went amusement park, I went, I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Yes.
And
go ahead, stories. Yeah.
If Sue Tomlinson is listening, she's the one who went there because she was a cheerleader at St. Gerard's, and I tried to buddy up with her for that amusement park.
If you're watching this, Sue, have fun.
She moved to Canada shortly thereafter.
Hey, we'll be an international podcast.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah,
and it was about a 2.5 hour ride, so I'm thinking it's perfect from Lansing there. Yeah. Holy cow.
So, also, he mentioned that he went to the same school as John Smoltz. So, if John Smoltz you're listening, let's get a St. Gerard's podcast going on.
Live 5 houses down from John Schmaltz in Lansing. I moved before he moved in, but we shared the same neighborhood in Lansing, Michigan. And both went to St. Gerard. I played on the same fields as John Schmaltz. Wow. Oh.
Closed in 75 was the theme park. So you got one of the last years of it. So we're really into this podcast now. This is why you do research into baseball history, because you never know the lore that it still has today, people. He was at Benton Harbor. He has me. We have a podcast. We bring it all together. So the players are really taken care of, Dad. Now, this is, again, now a trip down memory lane for you. The players had mansions on the property. So, again, they didn't have women. But they had, if you're a 22-year-old guy, you're Jewish, you're not, this is your faith, you're not into drinking and gambling and all that stuff. You get to be basically paid to travel the country.
Yeah, and probably paid well for that era.
You had when you did come home for the off season, you had a mansion.
Yeah.
You got to be famous, especially around this time. I mean, people loved you. People got your autograph. Yeah. People took photos with you. You travel, the fame. I mean, you could see how recruiting people away from the MLB, if you're Jewish, this is your new home. You got another story.
Yes. The cabins, cottages, all over Benton Harbor because that's where the Chicagoans took their summers on Lake Michigan, and there's big Jewish contingencies in Chicago, namely Skokie, that is all Jewish, that they had the cottages along Lake Michigan. Benton Harbor was a suburb of Chicago for the summer during this time.
So there you go. If you lived in the Midwest, especially Michigan or Chicago, in the 50s or 60s, chances are you've been to this amusement park. Talking about notable alumni that have played on the fields that you walked on. We're just going to lead off Babe Ruth.
Holy cow.
We're going to lead off with the big guns. Babe Ruth, and there's a photo I'll show you, donned a fake beard to play with these guys. It wasn't an official game. It was with the Yankees. There was legal proceedings. He couldn't get paid to play. But I think he took a few swings. He took a few photos with them. And he did compliment. He said, these boys are for real.
Yeah. And that's the head of barnstorming. Yeah. When you get the celebrities coming in.
Yeah. Now, another big thing I said about fake beards, they had a lot of these. They would have people, especially from the area or something like that they're traveling to, they would bring in for the game because it's, again, a publicity stunt. But they always had fake beards ready to put on people. So when Satchel Paige, if you're familiar with Satchel Paige, he did not have a beard. When he came to play, they had a beard ready, and there's photos of Satchel Paige with a fake beard pitching for the House of David baseball team.
Wow.
Super star-studded.
What a great story.
Yeah.
There wasn't any prejudice then.
No. It's just
everybody got along.
They didn't care. They said, let's go play baseball.
Right. And they couldn't, neither one could get to the bigs.
Yes.
So they said, hey, we'll do it together.
There's this story that once Babe Ruth retired from baseball, the House of David reached out to him to see if he wanted to coach, but then they realized how all the vices in Ruth's life. They're like, maybe we should rescind our offer. Yeah. But there is record of Babe Ruth having conversations with these players, putting on a fake beard, and it's all that. Another person I would love to explore maybe in the future is Jackie Mitchell. So Jackie Mitchell is a woman that struck out Babe Ruth.
No.
So yes. So a little girl from Chattanooga.
Sounds like a song.
It sounds like a title of our next podcast.
Yeah.
A little girl from Chattanooga. I'm going to shirt this as Little Girl from Chattanooga. Chattanooga is the best city in America to say. There's no second.
Yeah.
Cincinnati's close. Chattanooga's great. So her dad and she was neighbors next to like a major leaguer at the time, and she was always really into baseball. And she's like 16, 17 years old, as like, again, a publicity stunt for that area. She struck out Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig back to back. Now, a lot of people think it was intentional. It was for the publicity of the time. This is baseball of the 20s and 30s now. But once the House of David team learned about Jackie Mitchell striking out Babe Ruth, striking out the Sultan of SWAT, they signed her. So they had girls on their team. This was an official. She was a paid player. And yes, she wore a fake beard whenever she had to pitch.
Unbelievable.
So the House of David got, you could say Babe Ruth, 100% Satchel Paige, and 100% Jackie Mitchell. Wow. Now, what's a really fun story about Jackie, Jackie refused to travel in the team bus because, could you guess why?
Smell, they stunk.
Yes, multiple games. They really didn't shower. Again, this is just America this time. No one's showering every day. Think about all the hair people. Body hair, length of hair,
it
beards.
Just stuck to them.
Right. Cotton wool uniforms. I mean, thick uniforms. So she played, I think, a summer and then went back to Chattanooga.
Yeah. The bus rides had open windows.
Right. So the bus was quite horrific, as some players and some sightseers. But so with the circus. The circus comes to town. The circus has some smell to it, too. But I really want to... I'm going to get into the fall like I said I would. But I want to say that these athletes were great. They knew how to play baseball. They were good, and they were fun. They put on a good show.
They looked athletic, by the way.
There's nothing that anyone in the baseball team did wrong to bring down the commune. And I think, again, just like we kind of talked about how the Negro League demise, once Major League Baseball started integrating, some people saw, hey, I might make more money as a major leaguer. That took away a little bit of talent, but there was some problems from within. Like I always said, every cult has some sort of sex problems with it, some sexual downfalls. So the leader started getting accused of sexual assaulting and raping some of the younger girls in the commune. The commune split. The money split. There wasn't able to finance so many teams. You couldn't barnstorm in all these places. Money eventually fell off, and by the 50s, this was overall kind of dead. He died before his trial. It did get brought to trial, so there's some, it's not just hearsay.
And he was the head of the league?
He was the head of the House of David. This was the guy that invented the House of David in the 1910s. So he's like a 70-year-old guy, by the way. 67-year-old guy like assaulting 12-year-old girls. It's not like he's 25 with a 17-year-old. That's bad too, but it's pretty horrific.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say some records that they ended. Like I said, they had the most games in a year of any organized baseball team ever, over 200. First integrated games, first team to have a girl play. This is pre the AAG PBL, which is what we talked about. So that was...
Did she end up in that league?
I don't know. We can look into Jackie Mitchell
Okay.
and see what we do, see how that turns out. But I know that, she struck out Babe Ruth, struck out Lou Gehrig.
She must throw hard.
Some people think that. I think she did throw hard. I think she had this, called the drop ball. That was big back then. But we can talk about Jackie Mitchell and see who's a Jackie Mitchell fan out there. But yeah, Dad, so, I mean, what a podcast. We learned that you have... This was way more...
Oh, my God.
I thought this would be a 15-minute story. We have a personal connection here to Benton Harbor.
Yeah.
Phenomenal team, and we're going to look up some more photos once we get off the air.
And that amusement park was old.
Mm-hmm. Well, they didn't put any upkeep. I told you, in like the 50s, the team died, so the money coming in died.
Yeah, the rides weren't much, and it was in disrepair.
5 years later, it closed. They had a zoo. Did you see any animals while you were there?
I can't recall.
No.
Recall.
The zoo could have not made it at that point. So.
Yeah. But I remember they didn't spend a whole lot on the trip, I can tell you that. But yeah, and that was our reward for being safeties.
Yeah. Wow. So there you go. The House of David baseball team, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Go
give him a hand.
Go research it. Again, there's some other stories on this. There's great photos. So really, check it out. Give us a like, comment, subscribe. We're now on social media. We're going to start putting that in all of our videos. Twitter, Instagram at Pastime Podcast _. And we're also on Facebook too, the Father and Son Pastime Podcast. Give us a like, follow, comment, subscribe. You know the drill. Dad, anything else till we close?
I love the trip down memory lane. And, 1970 is a few years ago. But as soon as you said Benton Harbor, I went ding, ding, ding. It all came back.
And it does.
Yeah.
House of David, still making memories. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. We appreciate your time.
Well done, Patrick.